So yesterday I was listening to an interview with Florio or one of those guys or Pelissaro, and they were saying Dak's going to be the first $60 million QB, whether it's the Cowboys or it's with another team next offseason. And I'm just in my head, I'm like, $60 million for a QB? That's already what, like 20%? And I don't know how the numbers get finagled and moved around or whatever, but like I just don't think outside of Patrick Mahomes, anybody's worth $60 million. Like, you just can't be getting to crazy numbers. And definitely, I don't think that I've ever felt like Dak should be that guy or going to be that guy. But good for him. Make all the money you can.
Let's go full.
Tony, after what Trevor Lawrence did, they screwed the league over, right? They screwed the league over. Trevor Lawrence, $55 million. I mean, I guess you're worth whatever somebody's willing to pay you, but he's not the top quarterback right now.
It isn't going to stop. This is what I was saying years ago when I was fighting for Dak in that situation. I was basically trying to get through everyone's skulls that I understand Dak is not the best quarterback in the league. That's not the point I'm trying to argue. The point I'm trying to argue is that there's a clear trend in the market. And I think I sent you guys a video. I made a video a couple weeks ago on it, on how all of a sudden now there's like 15 quarterbacks. Half the league makes more than 30 million, when back in 2009, like not even that long ago, there was only 2 or 1 quarterback that made that much money. I could see where the market was going at that time, and I knew that everyone was going to pass Dak up. And now it's gotten to a point where if you're just a starting caliber quarterback, there's going to be a contract dispute, and you're going to get paid by somebody. If you're just a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL at this point, I believe Baker Mayfield got paid $30 million this offseason, which is half of the Trevor Lawrence contract. But that's still, to me, it's crazy to think about when Peyton Manning, I think, made $30 million plus maybe in one season his entire career.
Well, and that's a deal too. I really think Baker should be higher. He should at least be in the Daniel Jones ballpark, but that allowed the Bucs to keep a pretty solid roster together. Like, I think the Buccaneers last year, I was kind of low on them. Big mistake on my part. I will not make the same mistake again. I don't think Dave Canales is going to make that big of a difference, that loss. Last thing on the contract stuff, just because I feel like we're talking about value and different things there. The best player on the Patriots, Ramondre Stevenson, signs a contract. Like, it's a bargain. He is head and shoulders the best player on that offense, and they just got him for like $9 million a season. I saw it was like $17 million fully guaranteed, 36 was the number over a 4-year extension. Like, to get your best player on your team at $9 million, like, this is a guy who 1,500, 1,600 all-purpose yards easy, even on kind of a worse offense. Like, that's a steal to me.
Yeah, in a way, this might work out, having all of the other positions be easier to afford. And of course, the quarterbacks being way too expensive. Teams have to decide. You want to have a good team or a good quarterback? You can't have both anymore. You have to pick.
So I thought I saw something yesterday. Mike,
Go ahead,
on what you're talking about, Mike. I thought I saw something yesterday that the NFL owners were going to discuss a different salary cap for the quarterbacks. I don't know how it would work, but I thought I read that yesterday. And I in my mind, I was like, it could work and it could not work, because, like, say you put $100 million aside and every team has $100 million for a quarterback position. Does that mean you have to spend it? Like, even if I have shitty quarterbacks, I have to give them $100 million, or
no?
So it'd be like NBA where we could write them off one contract.
This is something I've been talking about for many years, that there should be a team salary cap and a QB salary cap, right? So that, like, because I think it's a little unfair to certain positions like linebacker. We're seeing that, safeties, running backs, especially. Like, if you have separate salary caps, then you don't have to worry about when you hit your big time quarterback, your team doesn't, the rest of the guys on the roster don't have to be punished. Because something Mike just said, you have to choose between a good quarterback and a good team. And I think the thing is that when you pay the quarterback that elite money, is that he's making up for what you're having to lose in that every year in free agency. A team like the Ravens can't afford to keep a guy like Patrick Queen because of what they're paying Matt Abike, paying Lamar Jackson. I'm not sure what Ronnie Stanley's numbers are, but paying those sort of what we call, the premier positions. But then you get a team like the Steelers, and it's like they're paying what, $4.5 million for quarterback play this year between the guys they got on the roster and whatever they still owe Kenny Pickett cap hit wise. Like, they can afford to sign a guy like Patrick Queen. So I think that you really have to exceed your value at QB. As before, you just kind of had to meet it. Now you definitely have to be playing Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen level football. And that's what we're going to see, because Josh Allen's got to be due a pay bump here at some point. Like, he's got to be looking around going, wait, I'm making the same amount of money as Daniel Jones. Like, I'm making $46 million, $45 million. And this guy, they're talking about replacing him with Drew Lock. Like, what's wrong with this situation? So there's got to be a real bump headed in that area at some point.
And it makes sense.
Ever put down Drew Lock like
that? Yeah, my favorite quarterback of all time. And it makes sense to have it formatted this way, to where, like we're saying, the cap is spent either on the players around the quarterback or the quarterback. When you have 7 elite quarterbacks making that much money, or 8, but when we stretch it out to half the league, you might as well do some kind of QB only cap or some kind of QB maximum contract where it's like every quarterback that gets paid whatever deal. You can negotiate bonuses or you can negotiate other stuff, but your base salary is set at this. This is the end. We're not going higher on quarterbacks than this $55 million number. I think that's enough, guys. I think 55 is enough for y'all for at least like 10 years before we need to raise this more.
There should be sort of a threshold where it's like, hey, the first 40 million count against the cap. They could do something like that. And if you work it out with them, you can then have also like a 25% increase of whatever that number is if you want. And you can sort of go to bat at that point where it's like, hey, we're setting the number at 50 million. And then whatever we decide to pay them over, that doesn't actually count against our cap. That is us recognizing it. And we can go 25% higher than that. So that would be what, another 12.5 million. So you could potentially pay them 62.5 million, but only that first 50 would count. So it's like, I think that they could look at something like that would then allow them to still be keeping these other players and letting them get paid what their value is. Because all of these teams, they won't admit it, but it's almost like they're conspiring and saying, hey, let's all make sure that we don't overpay certain positions so that we can still get these players at a certain value, or we think we can find them in the draft. Because there has to be a bubble coming soon for wide receiver. Like, you can't just be looking around going, oh, we can afford to pay these guys $35 million.
Every single one, yeah.
$40 million, yeah.
Wide receiver 2s. There've been wide receiver 2s in the league for multiple years now, wanting like $35 million.
Jamar Chase isn't going to come when it's time for him to get paid and tell the Bengals, hey, I need 37.5 a year. It's like, holy shit, man. Like, that's it's a big number.
As the market share grows.
Right now, last thought on it. There's no benefit of waiting to pay your quarterback right now. Like, I don't know what the Cowboys and Dolphins are doing. Every day that you wait to pay these guys, it goes up. Like, you could have had Dak and Tua under contract, and then you just saw this new contract come out with Trevor Lawrence, and you're like, oh my God, what did we just? Like, you should have got it done. You should get it done as soon as you can and get him under that cheap contract.
Even looking at Kirk Cousins last offseason, Joe, Vikings go into that thinking, let's see how it plays out. If he's undeniable, then we'll extend him and keep him here. Then he tears his knee up, and he still got the mega deal. Didn't even matter that he tore his knee up last season at his age. Still got the huge deal. Still got the big payday, and it's not going to matter either way. They're always going to get paid as long as it's formatted the way it's formatted. The thing that sucks is for the other positions like running back that have had a hard time getting those contracts, for the positions like linebackers that had a hard time getting those contracts, your guards, your interior defensive linemen for the most part. As the market share goes up, as the NFL makes more money, as the NFL goes global, as the NFL sells more TV rights and are charging the customers more for tickets, all this is going up, but those guys don't seem to get the same percentage boosts that the premier positions, as you will, receiver, quarterback, are getting right now in the league. So
just like
some
MJT.
kind of reconfiguration to where the running backs and the linebackers also get a pay raise when all these salary cap raises are implemented would be great to see for these guys.
You know what I'm saying, Mike? It's just like us right here. Tony's getting all the money, and we're just seeing just a little bit, just a little bit.
You guys are getting paid?